Welcome back to our step 3 step work, where we go through these sacred self-healing steps systematically. Okay, and we're investigating what sort of the deeper aspects of this step, yeah, can come forward to us, or how they can come forward to us through our inner experience. So let me just sort of summarize what we talked about here in step 1 and 2. In step 1, we, remembered that we actually have a heart and that we from time to time need to check in with it, yeah, and worked on our inner heart connection. In step 2, last week, we identified that there's a sort of a schism in us, that there's a duality in us, or polarity, and that we can also feel sometimes how we're getting pulled out of our heart. Yeah, and now I want to go a step deeper with you and investigate, how our true self, like who we truly are, and maybe these two parts of us belong to who we are. We don't know this yet, but you know that there was always sort of a two-step procession with the sacred self-healing program, because every step kind of also has sort of the other duality. So guess what the fourth step is going to be? It's going to be called false self, and we want to investigate this a little bit. So what does living from truth and being able to trust in your inner guidance look like? Yeah, so we're going to deepen our journey here by consciously connecting with our true self, the eternal, unchanging part of us that exists beyond the ego, beyond the narratives, the stories, beyond our fears, and actually also beyond our physical experience. Yeah, so there's a part of us, yeah, that doesn't actually change. Those of you who are a little bit older, I don't know if you figured this out already. Aging is something that my inner me doesn't actually realize. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? I still feel like how I was 20 years
Yeah,
ago or 40 years ago.
absolutely, Yona. I think, and it's as I'm getting older, I feel that more because I kind of see or feel the contradiction, or at least what society tells us. But yeah, it's strange, really.
It's strange, and sometimes I'm shocked. I look into the mirror and I'm like, whoa, who is this? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And that also has something to do with the development of our eyes. So when we develop this connection with our true self, then time, or our perception of time, changes. We are tuning into the cosmic scale of time, and that is no longer linked to the earthly time, which is very, very important to realize, yeah, that our attachment to earthly time is actually an attachment to our physical body. It's the attachment to a physical body. So if we believe that all there is and the only way how we can experience ourselves is through a physical body, which is the materialist way of seeing life and this life's experience and the experience of self, yeah, then we are a bit screwed. Because if you look at your life as a clock ticking, yeah, because we all have an expiration date, we just don't know it, thank God. Yeah, but if it really was so, or if it appears that way for a person, then aging becomes a very, very scary thing. And not just aging, also everything that comes with it, performance anxiety, for example, because there's sort of an unconscious belief that we only have this lifetime to get things done, yeah, to evolve or to succeed or whatever. We name it what it is that we think that we need to accomplish, yeah, that we align ourselves to. So this step is very much about learning to align ourselves more to the totality of who we are, And the mediator of that, sort of the bridge between this physical and our spiritual, what we will later call our I, yeah, sort of the higher, developed version of our ego. Yeah, and then even later we will call it the higher self. Yeah, the bridge is the true self. Yeah, so in our, primarily physical experience here in this body, okay, we all have the ability to tune in with our true self. And I will introduce a certain technique here, how to do this. This would be sort of the physical attunement, how you can get your body to kind of support you and connecting with your true self, with this mediator between the physical and the material, the physical and the spiritual you. Okay, and then we're going to talk a little bit about self-perception, how we perceive ourselves. Yeah, this is also where the schisms and these dualisms that we have, that these inner conflictions where they pop up. We have to kind of talk ourselves through this. Yeah, because if we want to learn how to listen to our inner guidance, uh, what are we experiencing before we could actually fully trust in our inner guidance? What is the initial experience when you start listening inward? What do you hear first? Any experiences? I say you want to meditate. Okay, you've heard somewhere that meditation is good. Okay, and you start wanting to meditate. This is how I approached it. This is why it took me 20 years, yeah, to manage to actually meditate, because I had the completely wrong understanding of it. But what happens first?
So all
What do you hear first?
the inner voice, yeah, and just all your day-to-day mental I thoughts going
Yeah.
through, like so, which then you come to learn it's not actually, not most of it's not even ours, but yeah,
Yeah.
all these that we think is ours, and it's all piling through the head like a
Takes
steam
ages.
train. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an ongoing train, and that train
Yeah.
is not always even linked to ourselves. I mean, it's random stuff. Yeah, sometimes it's also stuff from our childhood, right?
Yeah.
So we often also hear the critical inner voice, the negative inner self-talk, very loud. First thing when we tune inwards. And we're going to work ourselves through this here within the course, because this is very important that we get sort of these different layers of ourselves and how to address them and how to work through them, and sometimes also how to heal them. Yeah. It isn't really until we have an inner experience of true inner guidance that we can make this differentiation, Abby, that you just mentioned, where we realize, hey, wait. I didn't even think this. This isn't even, no, I don't know, or, where we realize, that's my ego. Oh, that's not who I
Yeah.
truly am.
That's the thing that takes the time, though, because it takes years to actually work out what's what, and obviously that is ongoing as well. But yeah, certainly it's what takes the time.
And it's really just the conscious observation of that, that can get us to that place. It is nobody, there's nobody else sitting in our heads. Nobody from the outside can tell us, hey, if you think this, or that's wrong, that's your ego. And, oh, if you think this, yeah, or if it sounds like this, that's your true self. Nobody really can tell you that. You can listen to other people's experiences, yeah, and you can communicate this. This is what we do here in the Sacred Self Healing community, because the exchange of these inner experiences helps us to become more aware of them. So what you see here on your screen is basically sort of what we do, these online meditations, yeah, these meditations together with just sort of as our key points here. Yeah, so because really what we're trying to do is to build a stronger connection to the spiritual part of ourselves, the inner divinity or the true self. And so there's many different ways of calling this, and these words also evolve with the steps. Yeah, so we're working on connection. Yeah, and really what we're up against is it's not necessarily anything that comes from the outside, but really like a lack of discipline within ourselves, our thinking and our emoting. Sorry, guys, it just kicked me out. I'm back. At least I noticed it. I didn't keep talking. Yeah, I've got inner guidance now. It says, "Oh, wait, to check." Yeah, so with or through this observation, we begin to realize more and more what Abby, what you just said, when we are connected and when we're not, and it helps tremendously to do this with others. Yeah, because we all have different ways of feeling it, of sensing it, of perceiving it, and by our different ways of expressing it, it can help us to go a little deeper. Yeah, so we're like, oh, this is interesting. Yeah, I know this feeling I've had. Oh, I never brought this into connection. Yeah, with true self. So true self is not some abstract kind of thing, guys. Yeah, so on the lowest level, it is our authentic self. But the problem with the authentic self is that just psychologically, that there's so many factors that play in authenticity that a lot of times it's kind of hard for us to say if that's even authentic because we're not really sure. We don't really know what our values are. We don't really know what our needs are. We don't really know what we want. And so authenticity is something that forms over time, that occurs through refinement, through purification, through development, yeah, through our sort of evolving maturity. Why does it matter to have a good connection with our true self? Now, I would like to ask you guys at this point, why do you think it matters?
That's an interesting question. My first initial answer would be because it's true. It's not something that's an illusion. It's something that you can connect with that can propel you more into truth, whether you like the answers you're getting or not.
Okay, so clarity, is that what you're hinting
Yeah.
at?
Yes.
I mean, true is a little iffy, okay? Because that's, I would say, is more like a byproduct of connecting well with your true self, that you get a
Yes.
better reference for truth.
Yes.
Because this is just a normal human experience. And I don't know about you guys, but I can think of like last week, what I thought last week was true is no longer true because I have more experiences now than last week. And so that has already changed. Maybe not sort of opposed, but last week I thought chocolate ice cream was the best ever, and today I think, you know what? Actually, I don't really like chocolate ice cream that much. I like vanilla ice cream better. Yeah, so these things, they need to be okay. We need to learn to be okay with that, and that there is always a little bit of a question mark. We cannot assume that what we experience as true is true. We can only state to ourselves, this is how I experience it, or this is how I perceive it. And I'm striving toward, only sort of thinking, doing, expressing things that are true. And for that, and you are absolutely right, Cindy, we need a certain level of clarity. And how do we get clarity, guys? How do we get clarity? How did this work in your journey, in your experience? How did you get to becoming more clear about what is true and what isn't in your life?
Practice.
Yeah, I mean, the methods, but I don't mean the methods per se. How did this go, sort of chronologically?
Oh,
Did
through trial and error.
trial and error? Okay, mostly the latter, right? Error
Yeah.
through finding out what is not true.
Yeah, through the experience.
Yeah, it is a confrontation with our own inner untruth that makes us grow, guys. That leads us to it more truth. So the first stage is always to question your truth, and that's a very healthy impulse. and then to ask questions. Well, is this really true to me? Because we have so many things that we just repeat, or we just do them because we've always done them this way, or other people told us to, or whatever. We think it is the right thing. But this first stage really of our quest for truth, for better understanding ourselves, better understanding the world, better understanding others, better understanding the cosmos and the spiritual world, is to investigate whether something is true or not. And like you said, it takes a while. So that's why that matters. Because without that investigation, if we would not set out to investigate this ourselves through our inner experience, what would we have to rely on? What would we be forced to take as true?
Anything external from the outside.
Can you make examples?
Somebody else's word for it, advertisement for something, anything that you would touch base with on the outside, not an inner experience.
Yeah, I mean, something even as simple as church or
Definitely.
science
Yes.
or politicians or your national identification, your racial identification, your tribal identification, your educational identification. Those are all external truths, if you will. I'm not saying that they're untrue, but I'm saying that if we identify ourselves with something from the outside, we cannot be sure that it is true and that it is true for us. Yeah. So that's important to understand. So what are the keys? Yeah, here in the workbook, it's called the keys of, really connecting and aligning with your true self. So basically, sort of in a nutshell, what do we need, okay, to successfully align? And when I say align, this doesn't mean, fully identify, but, at least sort of working toward being a true self. So in the workbook, I call this willingness, awareness, and honesty. Honesty is the first and also the hardest part. We have to develop a discipline of radical self-truth, of radical honesty with ourselves, but without criticism, without judgment. So honesty has a lot to do with, like being willing to at least with ourselves, to let go of all these external factors and just truly ask ourselves, how do I really feel about this? Deep down. How do I really see this? Now, some of us are lucky enough to have friends or partners with whom we can enter this level of relationship, this level of conversation. But most of us don't. And we have to kind of do this. We have to learn how to do this from within ourselves. And so the practice of connecting, or at least aligning to our true self, that is really, a practice of honesty. And what starts out as sort of self-honesty later then becomes, sort of a practice of honesty with others as well. Being truthful, embodying truth in our lives to our best abilities. Key number 2 is awareness. Well, in order for us to actually be honest with ourselves, we first have to actually become aware of all the little notions in us, our thoughts. We have to really sort of listen to those thoughts. And like Abby, like you said earlier, start to question, did I actually think this myself? You mentioned, I don't know if it was Cindy or you, Abby. You mentioned something that we might discover that most of our thoughts aren't even our own. Well, science actually supports that. Statistically, 80% of all thoughts that we're thinking aren't our own. We haven't thought them ourselves. And I want to be a little critical here about sort of the most current developments. Yeah, I want to say that percentage went up a few marks. Yeah, I think we're more like at 90% today. And what's more shocking when we look at statistics is that out of these 80%, yeah, if we remove them and we only really thinking 20% of all thoughts, actively thinking them, yeah, where you can retrace the steps. I thought this, then I came to this conclusion and so forth. Let's say there's 10% left. 90% of those are repetitive. They're recurring. They're like looping in our heads. This does not feel very free to me. This does not feel very true to me. So without the freedom to think what we really want to think and think it all the way to the end, yeah, like going through it, really thinking it through, we need to have the freedom to do this. And if we are caught in these cycles, yeah, we're like 80% of what comes in isn't even our own. This comes in stuff. I mean, some of the things we kind of like, okay. But a lot of it, I think somebody here, Cindy, you mentioned advertisement. If you just repeat the message often enough, we'll eventually believe that it is ours. Mm-hmm. So we have to be willing to observe our thoughts. And I haven't even talked about feelings, yeah, emotions and so forth. I think we all know how easy it is for us to sort of get caught and identify with our emotions and no longer actually being able to see truth anymore because we're so preoccupied and so riled up. Yeah. But to be willing to observe our thoughts and our feelings and also our physical sensations, because as we will learn here in step 9, there is a connection between our physical and our energetic or spiritual energy. And our body is actually sort of the tuning fork for this. So it can actually also give us information. It can give us guidance. So honesty, awareness, and then last but not least, I've said it every time, we need to be willing to be honest. We need to be willing to be fully aware. And guess what? The last one is actually the first one. We need to be willing. We need to be willing to have an open heart. We need to be willing to see beyond illusions. And yes, sometimes it is uncomfortable, like you said, Abby. Sometimes it's very uncomfortable. There's entire sort of frameworks, entire beliefs and worldviews that can collapse upon investigation of these worldviews that we have. So the willingness to be open, allow things in, think them all the way through, being honest with ourselves in this reflection without judgment. Most people get stuck on this quest to their true self because they find out how much they're not in truth. Yeah, this is a very, very important sign of you healing, that you're beginning to realize this. It is way worse if you're not even aware of the fact that your mind creates illusions, or that you are sort of limited in your view, or that all your beliefs have basically just been spoon-fed to you. Yeah, so this willingness to, I always say, assume that you might not be in truth. Yeah, that there's a fallibility of your mind. With our emotions, we're kind of clear on that. We know that our emotions can get us into devil's kitchen. But with our thoughts, we still have this like, sort of naive belief that every thought that we're having is who we are. Yeah, so we need to decouple our identification with our thoughts a little bit. That's very counterintuitive at first, because the way we are trained when we go to school, when how our daily life sort of operates is, that we're very much sort of focused on what we're thinking. We're all in our heads a little too much. And naturally, when we are in our heads too much, especially if that headspace is occupied or preoccupied by things that are not even linked to our inner truth, to our true self, well, you can imagine how high our chances are to actually connect with our true inner guidance. So here in step 3, I'm suggesting a modality, a technique for you to sort of do this a little, I don't want to say faster, but to do this a little more efficiently. So if we heard this here through in between the lines, that this sort of investigation and this building your inner lexicon and this entire sort of inquiry process, learning to be non-judgmental, learning to stay open, learning to be more conscious, that this can take years. And that is true. But it often also depends on sort of how we're approaching it. This is why there's so many books written about, these different methods of, sort of gaining spiritual knowledge. All right. I want to offer you here a very, very simple technique. It's called I am breathing. I am is a phrase that you will hear a lot here. So I am, sort of in spiritual science and lots of other spiritual traditions, stands for sort of the highest recognition of your higher self, the inner experience of your higher self, that the highest level of you, if you will. This is the I am. Christians will also recognize this basically as a pathway, as a spiritual initiation pathway. The I am breathing technique is a very simple breathing technique. So there's a lot of yogic tradition, as you know, a lot of breathing techniques that can sort of trigger certain things in us, releases, healing, and so forth, but relaxation and so forth. But here I'm in step 3, I'm really just offering you a very simple way of just connecting with yourself. Yeah, it works the way that you, like most breathing techniques, the first sort of feel into your sort of outer boundaries, your feet and your head. Those are sort of the top and the bottom. So by grounding yourself a little bit and then seeing your own sort of breathing in and breathing out as this sort of motion, where you expand. So where you expand and then where you bring the energy back in. So you could also do this, and you're with me, we do this with body motions, We expand and we breathe in. And we allow everything to release, to get your body out. And as you do this, you will also notice that, you expand, not just in your body, but also in your energy body. If you do this sort of, I don't know the word for this, but if you do this motion, it's not a walking, it's just like sort of up and down. In the workshop, I am hinting at sort of some of the energies that are involved in this breathing technique. So it's important that we get a good feel for our, sort of outer boundaries. And if you, sort of stretch out your arms, you can get something that looks like a coordinate system. Okay, sort of like a Y and an X axis for those of you who are, very intellectual. And with your heart really at the 0 point, at the center of it. The heart, not the physical heart, but sort of the, well, it's kind of like the vacuum chamber. Okay, this is where everything goes in, and then it gets filtered, yeah, and then you breathe out. And so the general motion here, without further explaining more about this, is that you pull in your in breath, you pull in the energies from below and above, and then you let your heart do its job, and you visualize your breath going outward. So this is basically the motion. You breathe in, and then you breathe out sideways. So let's do this a few times. Breathe in. Breathe out. And actually, as you breathe out, push all this used up air that is in your lungs out. One extra, like out, and then more. Until all that is out. And then take a deep breath in again. Hold it. Hold it. So just this simple technique, guys, makes you focus on your breath. It makes you focus on your bodily sensations as you're doing this. Okay, yeah, let me show the screen here again. And, takes your head out, takes your focus out of your head into what do you think shifts when you go from your normal day-to-day sort of rhythm, your day-to-day thinking, breathing, and so forth, when you start focusing on directing your breath and your energy in this way. What do you guys think? What shift occurs in you when you do this?
My nervous system, I can feel it in my nervous system.
Yeah.
I'm calmer, I'm more centered,
Yeah.
I'm more clear.
Yeah. And you don't actually have to have any kind of esoteric or spiritual, knowledge or prerequisites. You just need to focus on your breath. So that's already good. Just focusing on the breath can do that. And if you breathe in this way, you actually indeed, you're stimulating your parasympathetical nervous system, which is sort of the counterforce in you that calms you down, that allows you to relax. And this is sort of the only prerequisite, I would say, that is needed to better hear your inner guidance. Because when you relax more, Cindy, what else happens? Think of your thoughts. Where are they going when you're focusing on, like, say, this breathing technique or any other breathing technique?
I'm focusing only on the breathing. My thoughts aren't spiraling out, being destructive or hitting my emotions.
It can happen though, but it is in that moment. I mean, we're talking about like what? How long did it take us to breathe in and to breathe out? Even if you do it slower, hold your breath and all that, 3-4 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you wouldn't believe it, but 3-4 seconds can make a huge difference for a nervous system, for a body, for your body. 3-4 seconds can make the difference between a trauma and no trauma. Can make a difference between feeling connected, feeling love from a person, or feeling lonely and abandoned. So that's a long time. So if we can actually sort of cut out these few seconds, and ideally, of course, we do this not just once, we do it a few times, out of our hectic day, our heady sort of mental obsession, and pour it into our hearts. Okay, that is good for the body. That is good for our physical, because it activates our parasympathetical and our vagus nerve, and with it then calms our nervous system. It's healthier for our immune system, for our digestive system, you name it. But it is not just physical. So it's not just about relaxation. It is about so much more. Because what happens when you get out of that stressed state? What happens with your emotions? Well, you can actually feel better, more precise. You gain more clarity about your feelings when you're a bit more relaxed. Because you can kind of lean back and look at things. You guys all know what I'm talking about. I mean, if you like all riled up and you're very judgmental and you're very quick to jump to conclusions, but when you're in a very relaxed place, you actually feel like you have more time to think about it. Reality is there's not actually more time. It's just the way you perceive the time, based on sort of your brain frequency and your nervous system and a few other things. So for those of you who still struggle with this, there is a second thing attached to the I am breathing that I share in the workbook. And it's also the reason why I called it I am breathing, because this actually came to me through my inner guidance, and it was showing me exactly how to do this. And it was not just the focus on the breathing. There's lots and lots of different breathing techniques, and not just the visualization. It is also to give the breath a sound. So many of you know sound is also part of our energetic reality. It is still a physical reality. In other words, it's a physical force. Yeah. Sound is a physical force, but sound is linked to our energy centers. And therefore, we can actually accomplish so much more if we add one more thing to our breathing. And that is to voice, to sound out the word I on our in breath. This is very tricky. It sounds so simple, but it's so hard. And to sound out the word am, I am, as we are breathing. And what you will find out, guys, and I'm going to demonstrate this to you, and it's going to be a perfect example because I have talked all day long, all week long. My voice is hoarse, so it's going to sound exactly how it's going to sound for you when you try to sound, unless you have a lot of practice in this, because there's singing techniques in that way you do this. But if you're not a trained singer or a Buddhist monk, then it's going to sound like this. So it's going to be very, very difficult to get a normal sounding I. To sound out when you're breathing in is very, very difficult. It requires a lot of control. So do not feel like a failure or whatever if it sounds like this. Even for me, it sounds this way right now. However, if you're doing this, your energies learn to, I want to say, that not just your body, but also your energies learn to calm down and learn to sort of balance themselves out. There is way more information about this in step 9. So for now, I want to leave this here and just give you the homework of, using this week until next Saturday for sort of more conscious I am breathing. Just do it, guys. Just do it, even if it's just one time a day. Breathing techniques, you can do this in any situation, even while you're watching TV or whatever it is that you're doing, at work, anywhere. Just don't try the I am sounding in presence of other people, because it sounds very eerie. Let's just add one more thing actually 2 more things before I let you go. Do you sort of get a feeling for why it might actually be important to journal a little bit more? Why do all spiritual practices recommend to journal? Any idea?
It must be a way of connecting to our true self.
Yeah. It's basically the same thing as the breathing technique. You're checking in, sort of. With journaling, you're checking in. You're saying hi to your true self, yeah, because you are willing, you are aware, and you're honest, right? Those are the moments where you check in with your true self. So that's also part of the practice. And there's nobody there who's going to censor it. There's nobody there who's going to read it. But the practice of journaling is an extremely important method, yeah, to align and also to strengthen your connection with your true self. So the second thing that I wanted to add here to our step 3 meditation is the alignment with the 12-step program. Remember how I introduced you to this conceptual connection where I said, I wrote the 24 steps with the 12-step work as one of the most efficient self-healing and group healing modalities that we have at this time, at this day and age, in mind. And I've aligned every 2 steps to one 12-step to one. So I'm taking those 12 steps, and I'm adding the duality of each step in my own interpretation, obviously with, spiritual science and esoteric elements added to it. And here I want to just leave it as such, and then we can discuss this a little bit more with step 4, false self. Yeah, what does step number 2 in the 12-step program sounds like? It says, I come to believe, or we come to believe, that there is a higher power greater than my ego that can restore my sanity, yeah, that can help me with this, that can fix this, that can heal that. So there is a power, but it's greater than my ego or than my false self. It's greater than what I think, yeah, that I am. That can, because even if I have found out that I am powerless, yeah, that my thoughts are not my own, and that everything that I believe in is basically spoon-fed, you probably know a lot of people that come to this awareness as part of our awakening process, yeah. Just because you find out that your ego is limited doesn't mean that all hope is lost. It doesn't mean that you're a lost case. All that means is that you haven't figured out yet that it is the true self in you that has the power to heal that, yeah, to correct that, to redeem that. But there's many different sort of layers that we have to go through to be okay with this, and also to recognize that most of our issues in life are spiritual of nature, and they require spiritual tools to address them. All right, I want to leave it here. Okay, I thank you so much for coming and for asking questions and for sharing. This is what the Sacreds of Healing community is about. I'm excited about seeing you next week, but don't forget to check our energy calendar. We have the monthly free Connect with Your True Self workshop. So I want to invite all of you to come on, I think it's the 17th. But please check my website. It always knows better. I always go check my own website to update myself. When we do the Connect with Your True Self, it's free for everybody. I've been doing this for over 13 years now, every month. And that's where we spend a whole entire hour to just sort of connect deep with, all these techniques and all these things that we want to align ourselves to. And then afterwards, we have a live sharing of our experiences. So you invited to come. I love you guys. See you very soon. Bye bye.